Hi guys, welcome to a week. It's going to be either 5 or 6 days of videos every day from me because I want to do a wrap up of 2020 and kind of look forward to 2021. So we're kicking off today with the worst and most disappointing books I read in 2020. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about my favorite books of 2020, but today I just want to hash out some of the worst and some of the most disappointing books. They're not always the same. Some of these most disappointing books I actually gave 3 stars because it's not that they were terrible, it's just that I had higher expectations and they didn't meet them. But some of them, like the ones that I'm calling the worst, yeah, they were just terrible. So we're gonna start things off with the very first book that I read in 2020. I think it was about this time last year, I heard Murphy Napier say that she likes to read a great book right at the start of the year because she feels like her first book sets her reading tone for the year. And I'm so glad that wasn't true for me because this was one of the worst books. If there was ever a book that you kind of wanted to throw across the room when you were done, this was one of them. And that is Red Riding Hood. But this is I think this actually might have been a play or something, I don't know. But it was so bad. I bought it from the thrift store because of the cover. It was white with some splotches of red. I didn't read anything. I didn't read the back. I didn't read the little blurb on the front that says that it's about werewolves. So I was a little shocked when it was about werewolves. So this is definitely partly on me, but not the major part. So it's about a small little village, and I guess there is one of the people in the village is a werewolf. And they do give you clues or I don't know, it's one of the people that are one of the characters in the book. And so I just decided, okay, I'm going to treat this as a mystery and I'm going to try to figure it out and just get over myself and this whole werewolf thing. So I got to the end of the book, ready to see who it was. And would you believe it? It said, for the last chapter, the one that tells you everything, go online to this website. Which is annoying, but okay, I went online to that website. And guess what? It didn't exist anymore. So after some major Goodreads investigation, I figured out who the website originally had said it was, and that person didn't even make any sense. It was just it was one failure after another, that book. So I was glad to be done that and move on to better ones. A big disappointment for me this year was Beartown. I actually bought the book thinking I was going to love it. I read A Man Called Uva. I read And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer by Frederick Bachman, and I just felt yeah, he was going to be an author I liked, and this one was going to be great. And I actually did not even finish the book because I was just so sick of all the teenage drama, and I couldn't handle it anymore. And so I quit. And I also got rid of book 2, which I owned, but I'm never even going to read. I'm hoping that Frederick Bachman can be a better, I can do better with his books this next year, but that was disappointing. I really debated on whether or not I should include this book because this is a book that made me feel a lot of emotions, and the one that I haven't stopped thinking about this entire year, and that is Rebecca. I went into it thinking this was going to be more thrillery, more edge of your seat kind of thing, and the character in here just drove me nuts. She was just kind of whiny and mopey, and just I just felt she should just get over herself. So our main character, she marries a man whose wife has died, and that wife's name was Rebecca. Our main character never even gets named. And yeah, I just felt she was really whiny and mopey, and then at the end of the book, things picked up, and my mind was blown, and I was oh, okay. So I don't know what I think of this book. The reading process was disappointing, but the ending was really good. And I'm actually very excited to reread it. Maybe this should win the award of the most confusing emotions while reading it kind of thing. One of the most boring books I read this year, I actually quit it with I think 10% left. And that was Angela's Ashes. This is a nonfiction. I think it's supposed to be kind of memoir-esque. And I just dragged my feet, and finally I was why am I reading this book? I just quit with 10% left. Then I read a Christian, I don't really think it is, fiction story called The Lord is My Shepherd. This is about, it's supposed to be a mystery book, and I think it's maybe under romantic suspense, but our main character kind of like falls in love with this Jewish rabbi. It's all very confusing. I kept waiting for him to be like the guilty person and hiding something, and it was just a very, very weird book, and not one I would recommend picking up. A disappointing book that I am going to proudly show off on my shelves for as long as I possibly can is Middlemarch, because I am proud to have finished this book. This is like 800 pages of monotony, and I read every single page. I wouldn't recommend it. It's pretty much just life when we follow two couples that obviously married the wrong people and don't love each other, and politics in their small little town. So boring. But I made it. I made it through, and it is going to sit on my shelves so people think that I'm smart, when really I'm just, I don't know, I was just bored. Another big disappointment for me was A Darker Shade of Magic. I had high hopes. The premise of this book sounded good, with there being different kinds of Londons with different colors. So there's like gray London, black London, white London, and red London, and they all have different like amounts of magic, and there's a couple people that can travel back and forth. It sounded so good, but it felt really flat. Like our characters just had kind of no personality. Like, things, I don't know, this is a series. I don't know how many books are in it, but even though the concept was good, the execution was just so boring that I didn't care to continue reading the rest of the series. Okay, then we've got a possibly controversial one, because so many people love this book, and when they read it, it's like one of their favorites of the year. But that has got to be A Gentleman in Moscow. I have gotten rid of most of my books that fall in this category, because I was like, why am I going to keep these books that I didn't like? I mean, Middlemarch, I told you why I'm keeping that one, but if I don't like them, I want them to go. A Gentleman in Moscow, we sit in a hotel with a guy who's on house arrest for like 30 years of his life, and not much happens, let me tell you. I thought it was incredibly boring. It was 17 hours of an audiobook, and listening to it on like 2 to 3 times speed to try to get through it, and it still felt like it took forever. This is one that's going to continue sitting on my shelves because it's an Agatha Christie. I can't believe this is in my worst and disappointing books of 2020, but Passenger to Frankfurt had one of the best first chapters of a book I have ever read. This man is sitting in an airport, a woman approaches him and says, "Hey, can I have your passport because I want to travel under your name?" And he's like, "Why would I let you do that?" And she's like, "Because you like excitement and adventure and stuff." So she gives him some kind of drug in a drink, and he falls asleep and then pretends that his passport was stolen. Great first chapter. Excellent. Loved it. The rest is just like boring. Apparently it's a political thriller. I got the politics part, but I don't know what was thrilling about it. It was so boring. I think, to my knowledge, this is Agatha Christie's only thriller, or at least her only political thriller, and I'm glad that she did not continue in on this vein, because I do not think that it's for her. Then we've got A Heart of Thorns. This one had a really good first sentence, and I was so excited about it, and it like quickly went downhill. This is in a world where certain women have magical powers, and the king is pretty much afraid of them, so he makes them out to be these scary creatures, and I don't know, it got dark and twisted, and like betrayal by the people closest to you, and I really didn't like it. This is actually on my unhaul pile, and it's not sticking around. Another popular book that I'm putting on my list of most disappointing books is Assassin's Apprentice. Now, I'm going to continue with the series. This is a adult fantasy story. We follow this kid Fitz from ages like 6 to 13, I think, in this book. But it felt like it was lacking depth to me, and Fitz, I just don't like him as a character, which is a huge thing for me. I really need to like my characters. I would love to see like Sanderson take Assassin's Apprentice and rewrite it himself. I think I would just love it. I think this book has so much potential, but like it falls really short. And it's going to sit on my shelves because I bought the pretty editions and I still want to read the rest of the trilogy. But I didn't enjoy it, and I know that is not a common opinion. I'm really sad to put this one on here. This is one of my favorite authors of the year, and one of her books is getting on this list. This is Echoes Among the Stones by Jamie Jo Wright. I actually did an exclusive vlog for my patrons talking about my dislike for this book. Oh, I'm so sad. she wrote one book I think that came out in the fall, and I think prior to that this was her newest one. So it's not like it was like her first one and her writing got better. In this one there is a murder in 1940 something 6, I think, and the sister sees her sister after she's been killed, and as she gets older, this sister recreates the murder scene in a miniature dollhouse, and it like has elements that sound really good. Like that to me sounded really interesting. But every single character in this book is whiny and they're so childish. I couldn't handle any of them. Yeah, so I'm also going to keep this book because it's going to look pretty on my shelf, and I want to support her writing. But I did not like this book. I'm sorry, I'm sad to say that one. And the very last book on this list, one that I just finished in the last few days here, is The Toll. Oh, I dragged my feet on this book all month long because I didn't think I was going to like it, and I was so right. This felt like, you know, some TV series when you can tell that they didn't think they were going to get like extended and the writers are just like scrambling for ideas. That's what this felt like. This felt like Lost in like one of the last seasons when it's just chaos and things are coming, like they're pulling things out that it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, so I own book 1, I own book 2, I enjoyed book 1. Apparently, when I started this one, I realized I had completely forgot everything that happened in book 2. So that one is completely unforgettable. I mean, completely forgettable. So I'm gonna get rid of book 2, I think. Why keep that one? Yeah, and I'm glad I got this one from the library instead of buying it because it was not worth my time. Okay, so those are some of the worst and most disappointing books of 2020 for me. This was not all of them. I had some like lower rated books. I had some books that I DNF'd that I didn't share. I just wanted to show you and talk about the ones that like still kind of irk me right now. So I would love to hear two things. One, what were some of the most disappointing and worst books for you in 2020? And two, which books on this list do you disagree with me or even agree? I would love to hear if you agree with me. But if you disagree, I would love to hear what you enjoyed about these books. Okay, so I'm going to be back tomorrow sharing some of my favorite books from this last year. Thanks for watching, guys.